Hey everyone, I'm Brad and this is Watch, Rate, Heart, and it's Friday, which means it's time for the watch list. It's where I discuss the films I've watched and my feelings about them. And this week, I thought it would be a nice change of pace to watch some films that are considered family-friendly. Basically, these are films that were meant for a younger set of moviegoers. So why is someone who is in his 40s watching films that were meant for children? Well, honestly, because even though they are made for kids, there are some films that still work even when viewed as an adult. A couple of examples last year that I watched were meant for kids that I enjoyed was The Secret Garden and Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And hell, there are Disney adults who love the anime classics, so there. That's not entirely uncommon now, is it? We got 4 films to discuss, 3 of which are from 1995, and 1 is an Oscar winner. So let's start with the film that recently won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. And that movie is Flow, an animated film from Latvia, directed by Gins Zilabaldos. I am sorry if I butchered your name. It has a Letterboxd score of 4.1 out of 5, a Rotten Tomatoes score of 97% fresh, and it won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature in 2024. And it is also on the Criterion Collection. I just have to say this. This film is what I wanted The Wild Robot to be. In the first 10 minutes of The Wild Robot, there was no dialogue except for what the robot said in a general sense. And there was no dialogue between any of the characters. And then a plot point happens in that 10 minutes where then the robot can understand what all the animals are saying, which I thought was kind of disappointing. But Flow doesn't have any dialogue. It actually incorporates actual voices and sounds from animals in the film, and it works really well. But let's get into how the film looks first. The film's animation and scenery are stunning. The animation is kind of rotoscopy in a way. I think it's more cel-shaded now that I come to think of it. But the animals are animated really well, so they actually feel real, but they rotoscope and cel-shade the animals to give them a little bit more of a personality in their face, which I think works incredibly well. And then the backgrounds of the film are gorgeous. Not only just the colors, but how the grass is and how the water is in certain scenes, but also the lighting is incredibly well done. And again, even though there is no dialogue in the film, I think the characters are full of personality. There are really no names. It's just there's a cat, a dog, a beaver, a lemur, and I forgot what the 5th animal was. And all of them have really distinct personalities, even though they have no dialogue whatsoever. And that's because the animation is so well detailed, and the look of the faces of these characters are so well done that it evokes a personality all on its own without saying a word. I also think for an 83-minute film, it is a very well-paced film. There is not even a wasted frame. I never really felt bored throughout the film, and I never felt like something didn't need to be there. It just all fit incredibly well in the film. I guess if I have one small gripe, well, not even a gripe, just maybe a little bit of a warning. I would say this is probably not for a younger set of kids. I would say probably below 8. 9 and above is where I would go with this. But if you want to see this with a younger kid, be warned, there are some scary parts involving animals getting hurt. So just keep that in mind. But man, I gotta say, I am so happy I gave Flow a chance. Flow is not something I was gonna watch at first this week. And then I just changed everything out on a whim, and then I chose to watch this movie, and I'm so glad I did. This is a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is a fantastic movie. Beautiful animation, the characters are very well realized, and they have very good facial animations, and have a personality all to themselves, even though there's no dialogue. And this is what I wanted The Wild Robot to be, even though I did like The Wild Robot, but this is very well done, very well thought out, beautiful movie that if you are interested in animated films at all, I think you really have to see this film. So 4.5 stars out of 5 for me for Flow. Now, with every episode of Watch, Rate, Heart, and the Watch List, I not only tell you my opinions, but we also look at the opinions with everyone out on Letterboxd. So let's start with Buddy O. Buddy O is not as in love with it as I am in this film. He gives it 3 stars out of 5, and Buddy says, "It felt like I was watching a movie by the guys who made the video game Journey. Very cute and whimsical at times, but I think it would have worked better as a 30 to 40 minute short film." I really have to disagree. I really like this movie. I do get the comparison to the game Journey. The only thing I would say is I don't think Journey is really all that deep, where I think there is much more depth in characters and in story in Flow. Let's get into our second review. This is a 4.5 star out of 5 review with a heart from Wolf Street. And Wolf Street says, "One of the most beautiful animations I've ever watched. Not only for the beauty beauty of its cinematography, but the way in which it tells its story without dialogue, but which manages to move in such a beautiful way with incisive criticism. Flooded world and the absence of humans are a silent reminder of the consequences of human actions, without resorting to moralizing speeches. The metaphor of a Noah's Ark without Noah could not be more appropriate here. Animals are protagonists of their own fight for survival, driven by instincts that bring them closer and distance them at the same time. Flow is an example of how to make a completely simple narrative beautifully. And I wouldn't, not just that it's a simple narrative as well, but I think the complexity of the narrative is within the characters themselves and the way they move and how they react to things. So I agree a lot with Wolf Street's review here. And our final review is a 5-star with a heart from Darren R. And Darren says, completely immersive dialogue-free animated world reminiscent of the early 90s computer game Myst. The animation is gorgeous, especially the underwater scene. Score is ethereal. The story has you fully invested at the edge of your seat in breathless anticipation of the struggles of these animals. Never have I felt so invested in a cat, a capybara, a dog, a lemur, and a bird before. I could have sworn that was a beaver. But anyway, found myself holding my breath at times. The literal embodiment of show, don't tell. That last sentence, perfectly said. Absolutely. The literal embodiment of it. This film is an excellent film. And if you are even slightly interested in animation or in the story at all, I would say you would have to give this movie a shot. Flow is an amazing movie. If you are at all interested, watch it on HBO Max or get it on the Criterion Collection when it is released soon.
I am a princess. All girls are. Even if they live in tiny old attics, even if they dress in rags, even if they aren't pretty or smart or young, they're still princesses. All of us.
Next is the first film from 1995, A Little Princess, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. It has a Letterboxd score of 3.8 out of 5, a Rotten Tomatoes score of 97% fresh, and it was nominated for 2 Oscars, including Best Art Direction and Best Cinematography for Emmanuel Lubezki. And speaking of both of them, the set design and cinematography is really good in this film. The film is mostly set in one building, but the cinematography does a great job giving the building character throughout the entire film, especially in specific scenes. I would say a lot of the first act of the film is just the main character Sarah getting to know all the girls and getting to know the building and everything. And it's shot very well in a bunch of scenes. I think some of the best scenes of the film are when all the girls are together and Sarah is telling her stories. And I think the cinematography is well done on that end. But I think the cinematography also is very good when it deals with Sarah mourning her father when she believes that he's dead, and when it gets into a darker area when she becomes a servant. Again, cinematography is very well done, not only by looks, but how it helps enhance the story. I also think Lyselle Matthews is very good as Sarah in this. She's basically a dichotomy performance with the headmaster of the film, who is exceedingly cruel and nasty. But I think she actually holds her own very well in this film. She's very charismatic, very likable, and just has this really sweet and innocent and naive kind of performance that is very good in the film. I will say that the film is pretty saccharine in spots, and it's also depressing in others, but it mixes well. They don't really go overboard on either way. I think it's a little more saccharine than it is depressing, but I think the mix is done very well when it comes to that. As for negatives, I have to say you need to remind yourself that this is in the mind and viewpoint of a child, because there are some things in the film that you'll watch that will be like, whoa, what now? And I think one example is the Indian man in the other building befriending Sarah and looking after her from the other building would be kind of weird, I think, without the context of knowing that this is in the mindset of a child. I also will say that the characters are pretty damn thin in this film. On top of that, they're very black and white. They're either obviously good or obviously evil. I think Sarah really is the only one that is pretty well defined, but even then I think she's a little too thin. And also, I think the film just ends a little too neatly. I think I would have liked a little more depth in character, a little more depth in the story, maybe a little more sadness at the end, but the way that the film ends, it's just like everything it's tied up in a nice pretty bow, and it's like, yeah, okay, I guess. I guess The Secret Garden did the same exact thing, so I guess I can't complain too much. Overall, I'm going to give A Little Princess 3 out of 5. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't as invested as I was in The Secret Garden. I think The Secret Garden is a very good movie. This is fine. I enjoyed it. I think the performance by the lead actress is very good. The highlight of the film really is the art direction and the cinematography. It's a very beautiful looking film, and the direction that Cuarón gives for this film is actually really good as well. It's just when it comes to story depth, whether it's the themes and the characters and everything, it's just too thin for me. And there's a morality dichotomy in this film where people are either obviously good or obviously evil that just was like, didn't do much for me. But I'll say this though, if you have a small child who you think might enjoy this, they might really enjoy this. So on that end, 3 stars out of 5 for me for A Little Princess. All right, so let's get into Letterboxd community thinks about this film. Lucy gives this 4 stars out of 5, and she says, me as a small child sobbing, why is this movie so good? Me now, seeing the names Alfonso Cuarón and Emmanuel Lubezki in the credits, that's why. Yeah, I'll be honest, the reason I wanted to watch this movie is because of Alfonso Cuarón, and I want to see more of his films. And this is the film that he made, I believe, before Y Tu Mamá También. I was like, I should probably check that out. And honestly, I think his direction and Lubezki's cinematography is what makes this film overall work very well. Let's get into our second review. This is from Joseph Ciortino. Joseph gives it 3.5 stars out of 5, and he basically says that this is a charming early film from Cuarón that shows his well-developed visual style even at that point. It also has a steady tone, and it doesn't have a lot of hysterics, which is unlike a lot of family entertainment that can't respect its audience's attention span. Which I sort of agree. I still think the characters are very thin, which is another hallmark of family-friendly films, but yeah, it's fine. And then we got our last review from Shane Grant. Shane gives it 3 stars out of 5, and he says, a well-made entry into the Dickensian boarding house genre. The plot is all a Brit... I wonder if he did this on purpose. The plot is all a Brit, sentimental, and predictable. That is true. And there's a smattering of smug colonialism about the whole thing. But Cuarón's competence behind the camera is clear. And I think that's the thing I came away from it. As for story and characters, I was kind of meh in it. But the direction and cinematography, I think, is what gets it over the edge for me for a recommendation. An excuse to watch a Ghibli film, I will take it. And the 1995 Ghibli film is Whisper of the Heart, directed by Yoshifumi Kondo. It has a Letterboxd score of 4.2 out of 5, a Rotten Tomatoes score of 95% fresh, and the screenplay was written by Hayao Miyazaki. And that is important because it's easy to see Miyazaki wrote this film. It's heartfelt, warm, funny in certain areas, but also touching overall. There's a lot I love about this film. This is different from Miyazaki's other films because this is much more of a slice of life film. It's not really that fantastical, except for a couple scenes that are in the mind of the main character, but this is actually just a very heartwarming coming-of-age film about a young girl exploring her feelings and what she wants to do with her life. Speaking of, I like the character of Suzuko in this. She's very likable, but she's also like a typical teenager. She's emotional, she's not sure of herself, and she's just having a hard time of things. But I also like the character of Seiji in this film. Both characters are great. They have a lot of good depth in their characters, and they are just great to get to know. And I like how the film spaces out everything to learn about them layer by layer by layer. I definitely enjoyed getting to know these characters a great deal. And honestly, even though it's not as flashy as the other Ghibli films, it has a very cozy, very warm vibe to the film that I really responded to, and I definitely enjoyed very much. If I had one small issue that I had, and it is very small, Seiji's admission to Suzuko about her doesn't really seem right. I'm not going to spoil what that admission was, but when I heard it, I was like, I don't think I like that part. That seems a little to me. It's a very minor quibble that I have with it, but I thought I would just say it because it did kind of bother me a little bit when I was watching the film. But man, Whisper of the Heart might be one of my favorite Ghibli films. This is a 4.5 out of 5, easily for me. It might be one of Miyazaki's best scripts, mainly because it tells its story very well, but it's a very warm, heartfelt film that lets you get to know these two characters, and I love both these characters very much. I especially like Suzuko in this film. She's a really good character in this. And again, it's not as flashy as the other Ghibli films, but I think the nice, cozy, warm feel to it really responded to me very well. So 4.5 out of 5 stars with a heart for Whisper of the Heart. All right, and let's see what people on Letterboxd think about this film. We have Kimchi Deluxe. Kimchi Deluxe gives it 5 stars out of 5 with a heart. And Kimchi says, this movie is probably my favorite Ghibli movie. The three-dimensional city is so beautiful. The way it visualizes about falling in love like you have to climb mountains and ridges. That's an underrated thing I did not mention in my review. The film does look very good. I think the setting of the film is really nice. The movie brings together almost all the beautiful memories of girlhood to me. Perfect and ideal to the point of distortion. Like a colorful bubble, afraid that it will break if you reach out. The messy desk, you can't reach the lamp switch even if you reach out and touch it. I just love this one. Let's get to the second review, which is from Franco with a 4. Franco gives it 4 stars out of 5 with a heart, and Franco says, one of those movies that makes you feel cozy in the heart and soul. Absolutely. Also, Seiji Emisawa is the man of my dreams. Okay. Just the idea of how it presents creative work as inspiration, it's just ideal. Yes, another thing I didn't mention. There's a creative bent to the film that involves Suzuku and Seiji in this that I think is really well done. And we got this last review from Violator Ghoul. Violator gives it 4.5 stars out of 5 with a heart, and Violator says, as an artist, this resonated with me in a way that few films about the artistic process ever have. Man, another deep element about this film that I just did not mention in the review, but yes, if you are a creative person, if you're an artistic person, you might get a lot out of this film, and you will really feel for Suzuku and Seiji in this film. So definitely. Again, love this film. Probably one of my favorite Ghibli films out there. Definitely see it if you have not seen it. Finally, our last film from 1995 is Balto, featuring the voices of Kevin Bacon, Bob Hoskins, Bridget Fonda, and Phil Collins. Yes, that Phil Collins. Directed by Simon Wells. It has a Letterboxd score of 3.5 out of 5 and a Rotten Tomatoes score of 56% rotten. First, let's get to the positives. I think there's some very nice animations for the film, especially during the last 15 to 20 minutes of the film. There's a lot of action sequences and a lot of very visually spectacular sequences in the film that I think look really nice. On top of that, the film goes by really quick, and I mean like 75 minutes max when it comes to Balto in this. So if you're looking for a quick movie to go by, Balto might be it. But I have some issues. First off, with the exception of Bob Hoskins, I think the voice acting is kind of meh in this. I think Kevin Bacon and Bridget Fonda just feel like they're just talking throughout the film. They're not really making a character. It just feels like I'm hearing Kevin Bacon and Bridget Fonda, not the characters. On top of that, the film is incredibly formulaic. I mean, the outsider's story is basically Aladdin, and other aspects of the film are also very formulaic from beginning to end. It really reminds me of all those animated films from that era. We have the outsider storyline. We have the obnoxious comic relief. We have the obvious good guy, bad guy dynamic. And I get this is supposed to be a kid's film, but I think it's kind of obvious after watching this why almost no one really talks about this film. And if I'm also being honest, this film could have also just been an hour long. There are live action sequences in the beginning and the end of the film that feel kind of pointless. That doesn't feel necessary at all. If you could really cut back on certain things inside of the animated sequences, this could have been an hour-long TV special easily. I'm not going to completely poo-poo Balto. It's not a bad film. I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5. It's okay. It's a decent enough film. There's some good animation, and it goes by really quick. But if I'm honest, it's as formulaic as it goes. And if you have seen a lot of these films in the past and you're wondering if this is going to be any different from what you're used to, I'm going to just say right now, it's about the same as the rest of like the Disney Renaissance films, only not as good. I'll be honest though, if you have this on DVD or VHS or whatever and you have a bored kid and you want to give this movie a shot to them, it might be worth a shot. You could do worse. So 2.5 out of 5 for me for Balto. All right, let's check out Letterboxd for their reviews. We have Anna Cam. Anna Cam gives it 4.5 stars out of 5 with a heart. And she said, and if I said I cried, what about it? Well, it's okay if you did, Anna. I'm not going to judge you. And our second review is from Chekofra. Chekofra gives it 2.5 stars out of 5. And Chekofra says, Balto is definitely a hero, but the movie left me with nothing amazing. I completely agree there, Checo. And the final review is from Ashley Bowser. Ashley Bowser gives it 3.5 stars out of 5 with a heart, and Ashley says, didn't live up to the nostalgia, but still has some charm. Yeah, I was looking through the reviews of Balto when it came to Letterboxd, and there's a lot of Persona reviews, and there's a lot of, oh, this hero is so handsome kind of things. There's also a lot of nostalgia. There's a lot of people who were watching this going, oh, I remember this when I was a kid, oh my god. And I kind of wonder if they gave it another shot, would they like it as much? Or, nostalgia is a hell of a drug. So that might just be enough for some. I'm pretty sure there are some films I'm just nostalgic for that if I didn't have the nostalgia goggles on, I might not like as much, but oh well. And that does it for this episode of Watch, Rate, Heart. But before I go, let me ask you a question. Are there films that are meant for kids that you, as an adult, still love? For me, it's mostly the Disney Renaissance films. We got Little Mermaid, Aladdin, The Lion King especially. But if I have to choose one, I would have to say Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast is still one movie that whenever I see it on, I end up watching it. And I think it just works on so many levels. Not just the animation, but the actual story and the drama involved in it. I still think it's an amazing film. You can follow me at Letterboxd NX at Watch Rate Heart. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it and share with your friends. I'm Brad from Watch Rate Heart. Thank you for watching, and remember, we all watch and rate movies, but you give them the heart that makes them live forever.